to basically for the public relations issue of them being able to say now, well, we took it to the grand jury and they didn't think it was a crime. I can assure you, if the prosecutor believed in this and took it to the grand jury and pushed, there'd have been an indictment if they'd have wanted an indictment to ensue, and obviously they didn't. Why? I don't know. Maybe I'll find out in the future. Obviously now, this isn't an ongoing investigation anymore. It's closed, so I'll have access to the at least the police files and what information they had, which I assume they turned it all over to the Commonwealth Attorney, but I guess we'll find out.
I don't know if you received the statement from the Commonwealth's Attorney. They said that...
I did not.
I'm just reading off what they sent us. They said the evidence in the case demonstrated that Mr. Taylor was shot and killed after he was the initial aggressor against Wilson and her spouse, depicted on video and several witness statements. What's your response to that?
The only thing I can say about that is I do not believe, number one, I do not believe he was the initial aggressor in the entire fracas that occurred at the clinic that day. Number two, even if he was an initial aggressor with the use of force to repel these folks and trying to get them out of the clinic, I don't think whatever he did gave rise to the response being the use of deadly force, a firearm. Yeah, like I said, he never had a firearm. He never had a knife. There was some talk this morning that he may have had a rake in his hand. I watched 4-angled videos. I never saw a rake. The only thing I ever saw in his hand that he was using as a buffer, weapon, whatever you want to call it, was one of those large orange traffic cones. I think they're made out of vinyl or plastic, and that's what he had in his hand. So I guess the Commonwealth Attorney is saying to the people of Kentucky that if someone comes at you with a traffic cone, you can shoot them. I disagree with that. Now, like I said this morning, I think there are times when the use of deadly physical force to protect yourself or others is appropriate. In this instance, I just don't think it was.
So I guess, like you mentioned earlier, next steps from here is to a civil case.
Yeah, I was told this morning that if additional information came to light, that the Commonwealth would consider, resubmitting it. I'll make an open records request on Shively Police Department for all of the information that they considered in connection with this investigation. There are some witnesses that I know they did not speak to. I'll reach out to those witnesses and see what other information we have, and then consider maybe asking the Commonwealth Attorney to resubmit. In the meantime, I will likely file a lawsuit against this person. But again, it just... obviously, massive disappointment for the family that they've been denied justice here, but there are other ways to get justice in the civil courts, which is what we will pursue. So obviously, for the family, one way or another, this is not over.
There's been a lot of, and you mentioned it earlier, things that didn't really seem right since this started. For example, them not identifying the person.
Right.
Do you feel from just the start of this, I'm not going to say it wasn't a thorough investigation, but, from the minute you heard about what happened to now, how would you summarize this investigation?
It did involve things that we don't, and I've been in this system 40 years almost. It did involve things that we don't ordinarily see. I mean, typically, someone shoots somebody at a scene and they're going to get arrested. They're going to be arrested. They're going to be charged with whatever appropriate crimes the investigating officer determines. It's going to be heard in district court. There's going to be a preliminary hearing, or perhaps not if it's waived to the grand jury. The case is going to go to the grand jury and typically be indicted, and then there'll be a trial. Now, like I said this morning, that's what this family wanted, was their day in court, so to speak, and that meant that if the case was indicted and went to trial, and she hires a lawyer, and the lawyer establishes with the jury that she did act in self-defense in a manner that justified the use of deadly force, not just force, but deadly force, and she was acquitted, that's how the system works, and they would accept that. But at this point, at least, they'll never get to that. They'll never know. And I think they've been deprived of something extremely important. Commonwealth Attorney disagrees, but hopefully a civil jury will see it another way.
You said you viewed several camera or video viewpoints of what happened. He was described as the initial aggressor by the Commonwealth's attorney. What did you see leading up to
Well, what happened was these three ladies, and I think they said that one, the younger one was a niece of one of them, and then it was a female married couple, and the shooter is one of them. But they came in to, well, I first established that they were angry about some things that had gone down. They brought their dog in, I believe, the night before with some kind of an emergency, and they were not happy with the way the dog was treated or the way communications took place or the treatment of the animal. And they came in hot. They didn't come in happy and glad to be there. They came in angry and hot and agitated. And you can't hear on the sound on the videos, but you can see it's obvious that these folks are angry. And for several, I don't know if I'd call it minutes, but it may have been, the spouse is holding back the shooter, who's extremely angry and agitated and flailing about and yelling. You can't hear it, but you can tell she's yelling. And that kind of gets everybody in the place a little, agitated. His son, Trent, comes out and is confronting this lady, trying to get her out of there. He does strike her. He did strike her. At that point, she pulls out a firearm and brandishes it all around. I'm not sure if she pointed at anybody. It's hard to tell from the camera angle, but she sure pulled out a firearm and chambered around into the firing chamber. At that point, he goes out one way and she kind of follows him out to a door and stops, and then everybody kind of turns and they go out. They end up outside the opposite door. It's hard to describe, but there's another door. The front, I guess that's the front door where they went out eventually. And you can see Trent is, trying to get them out of there and trying to protect the people in the clinic, who include his mother. And I think his little brother was there that day working. And he's just trying to get these women out of there. And he gets into it with the spouse. You can see him kind of push her up against the wall. The Commonwealth attorney told me that he was strangling her. And I said, well, was she examined? Yes. And I said, was there any petechiae? Petechiae is, it's bruising. If you're actually strangled, because the Commonwealth attorney told me that the lady said she was about to black out. If you're strangled enough to the point where you're about to black out, you're going to have petechiae that would show that occurred, and it's not difficult to detect. And she didn't have that. They said no, she didn't have that, but he did have his arm like up against her, and that's when he was shot. And I don't think, regardless of who aggressed or who didn't aggress, who was or wasn't the aggressor, I don't think that being in a physical confrontation with someone who's defending himself, I don't think that gives rise to the right to someone else to shoot you. So we'll at least let a civil jury figure that out.
What's the message to the family now? Obviously, we spoke this morning. You kind of were kind of expecting, them not to indict.
Doesn't surprise me at all.
What's the message to them right now?
From the Commonwealth attorney?
Well, from you to them, and I mean,
I had prepared them for this because that's kind of the way I saw it going. I mean, it was very clear to me in my meeting with the Commonwealth attorney that I was speaking to that they did not want this person indicted for whatever reason. I don't know if they're political reasons. I don't know anything about this lady. I don't know who she is. I don't know what her connection to the Shively Police Department is, to the Commonwealth attorney, to anybody. I just don't know right now. I'll find out. But my message is that you've been deprived of justice, in my opinion. And this is not the way it's supposed to work, but it seems we have a history of this in Louisville, unfortunately, of, not a single police officer. I hate to bring up Breonna Taylor because this has nothing to do with her, but at the same time, not a single police officer was indicted and assigned responsibility for her death in that grand jury presentation and investigation. The Commonwealth attorney can control what happens at the grand jury. And for the life of me, I don't understand why they even mess around with it. if they don't want it indicted or if they don't intend to indict, but it is political, and they want to be able to say to the public, I'm sure in that press release, I haven't seen it, but I'm sure it's, oh, we presented this to a grand jury and let them make the decision. You don't let grand jurors make that decision. You advocate. That's what attorneys are, as advocates. And in my opinion, they should have advocated for an indictment and let a jury sort it out, because this did not go the way these things typically go. For why, I don't know, but I'll hopefully find out.
Is there anything else that you wanted to say or make comment on?
Any further questions?
No. And you said you plan on filing a civil lawsuit in the coming weeks?
Yep.
Okay.
What is your message to veterinarians across the country who live in fear of their lives because of the emotional connection to their animals and the high cost of vet care, which many cannot afford?
Stay pretty damn vigilant, because this is not the last time this will happen. And it seems to be and again, I'm a gun owner. I believe in self-defense. I believe in the right to protect yourself, but I think it's not appropriate sometimes, and I don't think it was appropriate here. I have seen instances where it was. I've represented people where I felt it was appropriate. I've got a lawsuit against LMPD officer right now for charging someone who was defending himself. So, I believe in self-defense, but here it was not appropriate. It was not warranted, and I just don't think you can kill somebody who doesn't have a deadly weapon on them. Now, I told the Commonwealth attorney this morning, I think there are times where fists versus a weapon is appropriate. For example, if you and I get in a fight and I'm down on the ground and you're stomping me to death and you drop a weapon and I can pick it up and shoot you to avoid death, I think it's appropriate there, but that's not what happened here. That's just not even close to what happened here. So, welcome to America. Justice, maybe. Today, not. Thank you all.
Thank
Yep.
you.
Trent, this is a terrible time to ask you this question, but I'm going to anyway. You guys actually have already started a TJ Taylor kindness project.
Yes, we have.
Do you care to share a little bit about that?
Well, we're doing it just to, keep his name alive. And, that's the type of person he was. He was a very kind person, and he was one of the best kids that you could ask for. So, we'll be making donations to local shelters, we'll start a fund to where we can help people pay for their bills, for the right situations. We'd like to start a 5K race, in order to raise money to, help, fund this project. But hopefully we can do some good in this community, through his name, and that, I don't know. I just don't know right now.
Disappointment,
Disappointment is
That's not even,
there's not even a word for it. I mean, it cost me $19,000 to bury my son, and now nobody's accountable for that. At the end of the day,
criminally accountable.
Yeah. But I mean, at the end of the day, I don't know what to think about this. I mean,
And I know this lady, the Commonwealth attorney, told me 5 times, well, she has a right to carry a gun. I know. Who carries a gun into a vet clinic, for God's sake?
exactly. Why didn't you leave it in the car? Why couldn't you left that gun in the car? If you didn't plan on, something happening, you had that gun on you because you wanted to make sure that if something went down, you was able to get out of it,
Well, and that's my thing is, if you're coming in a place hot, mad, angry, whatever, and you start a big argument and a confrontation and a fracas, and you've got a gun on you, and you pull that gun out to show people your intentions are not honorable in good faith.
No, my wife told her. My wife, as she's running out the door, said, that's my son. Don't kill my son. She knew what she was doing when she ran out that door. She did not run out that door to leave and get in her car. She ran out that door to fight. And the moment that they're fighting him, and the moment my son gets the best of her, now you want to shoot him for something that you started? You know,
So now we have a dead kid over someone's dissatisfaction
my son died over a dog,
for the vet clinic.
over a woman who couldn't pay the bill for her dog. That's why my son is dead, over a dog.
Anyway, thanks for coming.
You know, she's a gun owner, but needs an emotional support animal. I mean, come on.
Okay, Trent, let's go.
Shit, I need a fucking emotional support animal. This is fucking
Thank you all.